Number 3 on this list came with a locking lid that promised to keep a marriage together. And for a while, it actually did. Number 7 arrived in a wooden case, carried by a man in a suit who wouldn't leave your porch until you signed. And number 1 wasn't sold in a store at all. It was sold at your neighbor's kitchen table, and it turned housewives into salespeople without them ever noticing. 15 products, every one of them gone from the shelves, but not from the memory. If you grew up watching your mother stack these in a cupboard she was proud of, you owned every single one. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next video, because we're just getting started on bringing back the kitchens America forgot. Number 15. The Chip and Dip Set. Harvest Gold Ceramic. 2 tiers, 1 bowl cradling the other. Sold in nearly every department store from 1968 through the mid-70s as the centerpiece of a proper hostess. What most people don't know is that the Chip and Dip Set wasn't really about chips. It was a status symbol disguised as tableware, a way to signal you could afford a set, not just a bowl. Department stores marked it up nearly 300% over a plain dish, and women bought it anyway because it meant they'd arrived. The bright color it added to a cabinet full of everyday dishes. Onion dip made from a foil packet and sour cream. Setting it out on the coffee table before guests arrived on a Friday night. Your mother wiping the rim with a dish towel before anyone walked in the door. By the late 1980s, plastic party trays had replaced it for a fraction of the cost. Most sets ended up in yard sales, sold for $1 to people who didn't know what they were holding. The next item wasn't for entertaining guests. It was for a housewife who just wanted dinner finished before her arm gave out. Number 14. The Electric Knife. General Electric. First widely marketed in 1965, but it didn't hit peak ownership in American homes until the early 1970s, when it became the default wedding gift nobody asked for and everybody got. What most people don't know is that the electric knife was originally pitched not as a convenience, but as a solution to a real physical problem. Carving a Sunday roast by hand was exhausting work, and manufacturers targeted women specifically, promising it would spare their wrists. Bringing it out right before a big holiday dinner. The smell of the motor working hard. A drawer where the blades never quite fit back in their case. Your father insisting on doing the carving himself, even though the knife was clearly meant for someone else's hands. Most electric knives were unplugged for the last time sometime in the 1990s, replaced by a sharp chef's knife nobody had to plug in. The real reason it died wasn't better technology. It's that convenience stopped being impressive once everything claimed to offer it. The next item didn't carve dinner. It carried it on a folding metal tray straight to the television set. Number 13. The Television Dinner Tray Table. Aluminum legs, a laminated wood pattern top, 4 of them stacked in a wire rack by the couch. Introduced in the late 1950s, but it was the 1970s that turned them into a nightly ritual instead of a novelty. What most people don't know is that these trays weren't originally sold as furniture. They were sold as an accessory to the frozen television dinner itself, part of a marketing push to convince families that eating apart from the dining table was modern, not lonely. Setting up the folding trays before dinner. Steam rising off a foil tray of Salisbury steak. The glow of the television filling the room in the evening. Your mother balancing her plate on her knees because the 4th tray had gone missing years ago. The wire rack eventually got sold at a garage sale for $2, and nobody noticed it was gone. The real reason it disappeared wasn't the trays. It's that the family dinner table it replaced never fully came back either. The next item held no food at all, but it decided whether your kitchen looked like it belonged to someone who had it together. Number 12. The Matching Canister Set. 4 tins in descending size, flour, sugar, coffee, tea, usually in stamped tin or ceramic. Sold as a set you couldn't buy piece by piece, even if you only needed one. What most people don't know is that canister sets were originally a Depression-era invention meant to protect food from pests and moisture. But by the 1970s, they'd been rebranded entirely as decor, sold in matching harvest gold or daisy prints specifically to coordinate with a housewife's wallpaper. Lifting the lid to scoop out flour or sugar. A light dust settling on the counter. A faint rust ring left behind after years of use. Your grandmother refilling the sugar tin from a paper bag she'd bought in bulk to save 12 cents. Most canister sets were quietly retired once flour and sugar started coming in resealable plastic bags that needed no separate home. The real reason they vanished is that the kitchen stopped needing to look organized to be considered a good one. The next item wasn't decoration. It was the plate you ate off of every single night, whether you liked it or not. Number 11. Melmac dishware. Melamine plastic dinnerware. Sold in bright solid colors and faux wood patterns from the mid-1950s clear through the 1970s as the dish set that could survive children. What most people don't know is that Melmac was marketed almost entirely on one promise: unbreakable. And for over a decade, that single word sold more dish sets than any design or color combination ever could. Families who had grown up during rationing didn't want beauty. They wanted something that would last. Plates that never seemed to break, no matter how many times they were dropped. A faint yellowing at the edges after years near the stove. Stacks of mismatched colors from years of pieces joining the set. Your mother handing you the orange plate because it was the one that had survived the longest. By the late 1970s, reports surfaced that Melmac could leach chemicals when microwaved, and mothers quietly began replacing it with real ceramic. The real reason it disappeared wasn't fashion. It's that unbreakable turned out to matter less than safe. The next item wasn't unbreakable at all. It was made of glass, and it was the one your mother trusted with everything that mattered. Number 10. The Jell-O mold. Aluminum, copper, or glass, shaped like a fish, a ring, or a crown, sitting in nearly every 1970s refrigerator waiting for a church potluck or a Sunday dinner. What most people don't know is that the Jell-O mold wasn't really about dessert. Kraft's marketing department spent decades convincing housewives that a molded dish was proof of skill and patience, even though the recipe itself required almost none. It was one of the most successful image campaigns in American food history. Working the mold loose from the pan after a hot water bath. Fruit cocktail suspended inside orange gelatin. The careful walk from kitchen to table so it wouldn't fall apart. Your aunt insisting hers held together better than anyone else's every single year. Sales of flavored gelatin began dropping steadily through the 1980s as processed, congealed salads fell out of favor with a generation that grew up eating them under protest. The real reason it died is that nobody who was forced to eat it as a child ever chose to make it as an adult. The next item also needed hot water, but instead of dessert, it made an entire evening out of a single pot of coffee. Number 9. The Stovetop percolator. Aluminum or stainless steel, with a glass knob on top that let you watch the coffee darken with every purse. Standard equipment in nearly every American kitchen until drip machines took over in the mid-1970s. What most people don't know is that the percolator's rhythmic gurgling sound was considered a selling point, not a side effect. Manufacturers specifically advertised the sound as part of the morning ritual, something a drip machine's silence could never replicate. A steady sound building slowly on the back burner. The smell of coffee filling the kitchen. Watching the liquid darken through the glass knob while half asleep at the counter. Your father refusing to switch to a drip machine because it never tastes the same. Consumer Reports began flagging percolated coffee as consistently over-extracted and bitter compared to drip methods. And by the early 1980s, most households had switched over. The real reason it died wasn't the taste. It's that convenience quietly won an argument nobody remembered having. Number 8. The Fondue pot. The next item also gathered people around a pot, but this one required company to actually work. Copper or enamel, suspended over a small flame, sold as a complete box set with long forks and bright plastic handles. Sales exploded in the United States after the 1964 World's Fair, and by the mid-1970s, it was the single most returned wedding gift in the country. What most people don't know is that fondue sets were purchased far more often than they were used. Surveys from the era found that a huge share of fondue pots were used fewer than 5 times before being permanently shelved, making it one of the most aspirational and least practical gifts of the decade. A small flame kept burning low under the pot. Melted cheese slowly turning stringy on a fork. The smell of oil in the kitchen when the beef fondue cooked too long. Your parents pulling it out exactly once a year, for a party they hoped would feel sophisticated. Most fondue pots ended up permanently boxed in a closet by the early 1980s. The real reason it died isn't that people stopped liking melted cheese, it's that nobody wanted to clean the pot afterward. Before we continue, tell me in the comments which one of these was actually still in your mother's kitchen when you were growing up. The Jell-O mold, the percolator, or that fondue pot nobody ever really used. I read every single one, and I want to know which cupboard you're picturing right now. Number 7. Cutco knives. Sold door to door by a young man in a suit carrying a wooden display case, with a sales pitch built around a single dramatic demonstration, cutting a penny in half to prove the blade would never dull. What most people don't know is that Cutco's entire sales model depended on housewives, not husbands. Salesmen were specifically trained to target women during the day, when they were home alone, because the demonstration worked better on someone who hadn't already decided no before the knock on the door. The weight of a knife heavier than anything else in the drawer. The felt-lined wooden block that took up half a counter. A payment book kept in a kitchen drawer, one installment sent in every month for a year. Your mother saying we'll grow into it, about a knife set that cost more than the stove. Door-to-door sales collapsed almost entirely once dual-income households meant nobody was home during the day to answer the knock. The real reason it died isn't the product. It's that the entire sales strategy depended on a housewife who, by the 1980s, had gone back to work. The next item didn't need a salesman at your door. It needed real muscle, real steam, and real trust that it wouldn't explode. Number 6. The Ronco Veg-O-Matic. A single-slotted plastic tool advertised relentlessly on late-night television with one unforgettable phrase: "It slices, it dices," sold directly to housewives through infomercials years before the word infomercial existed. What most people don't know is that the Veg-O-Matic is widely credited as the product that invented the modern television infomercial format itself. Ron Popeil's company sold over 11 million units, largely to women watching daytime and late-night television who'd never bought anything off a screen before. Pushing a whole potato down through the blade grid, neat little cubes falling into a bowl below, the plastic beginning to crack after a few years of daily use. Your mother keeping the box it came in, just in case it ever needed to be returned. By the late 1970s, cheaper imitation choppers flooded the market and the original lost its novelty entirely. The real reason it faded isn't that it stopped working. It's that everyone eventually owned some version of it, and a gadget stops being magic once it's ordinary. The next item wasn't a gadget at all. It was a pot that hissed, rattled, and occasionally terrified an entire kitchen. Number 5. The Stovetop pressure cooker. A heavy aluminum pot sealed with a rubber gasket and a rocking weight on top that jiggled and hissed as steam built inside, promising to cook a pot roast in a fraction of the normal time. What most people don't know is that early pressure cookers had a well-earned reputation for danger. Faulty gaskets and overfilled pots caused enough kitchen accidents in the 1950s and 60s that some housewives refused to use them at all, even as manufacturers insisted the newer models were safe. A steady sound that filled the whole house while it cooked. The fear of releasing the pressure valve too fast. A rubber gasket kept in a drawer as a spare, just in case. Your grandmother standing back from the stove the entire time it cooked, arms crossed, waiting. Slow cookers arrived in the mid-1970s offering a gentler, safer promise: walk away and come back to dinner. And pressure cookers were pushed to the back of the cabinet within a few years. The real reason it died is that a generation of women were simply tired of being afraid of their own pots. The next item made no noise and posed no danger at all. It just quietly took over every kitchen counter in America. Number 4. The Mixmaster stand mixer. Heavy chrome or enamel, sold by Sunbeam and General Electric as the single most important appliance a new bride would ever receive, often as the centerpiece wedding gift from an entire family. What most people don't know is that the Mixmaster wasn't originally marketed on speed or power. Early ads focused almost entirely on time saved, calculating for housewives exactly how many minutes of hand mixing it eliminated per week, as though a woman's time itself had a dollar value worth advertising. The motor working harder as the beaters moved through thick batter. Flour dusted across the counter. The beaters coming apart easily for washing. Your mother licking the batter off one beater while handing you the other. Most Mixmasters from the 1960s and 70s are, remarkably, still working in someone's kitchen today, built solid enough to outlast the decade that made them famous. The real reason they faded from memory isn't failure. It's that newer models eventually replaced them on the shelf, even though the old ones never actually stopped working. The next item was the color everyone chose, whether they truly loved it or simply couldn't find anything else on the shelf. Number 3. The Avocado green electric skillet. a deep, cord-attached skillet with a built-in temperature dial, sold in the exact same avocado green or harvest gold as the refrigerator it sat beside, marketed as a second stove for a kitchen that suddenly needed one. What most people don't know is that the electric skillet was pitched specifically as a way to cook an entire meal without turning on the oven. A genuine cost-saving pitch during the high inflation, high-energy cost years of the mid-1970s, aimed squarely at a housewife managing a tightening household budget. The dial cycling the heat up and down, the smell of grease as dinner cooked. The cord kept coiled in a drawer because the skillet itself lived on the counter full-time. Your mother frying chicken in it because the good pan was already dirty. Most avocado green skillets were finally retired sometime in the 1980s, not because they broke, but because the color itself became something people were embarrassed to have in the kitchen at all. The real reason it disappeared is that the decade it represented went out of style before the appliance ever did. The last two items on this list weren't sold in a store at all. One was carried by a man who wouldn't leave until you signed, and the other was sold by your own mother to every woman on her street. Number 2. The Cutco knife block. We already covered the knives themselves earlier, but the block that held them earned its own place in the kitchen, sitting on the counter as a kind of quiet trophy for a purchase most families were still paying off. What most people don't know is that the block itself was rarely included for free. Many housewives paid extra for the felt-lined wooden case because a set of knives loose in a drawer didn't look like the investment it was supposed to represent. Wood polished weekly, whether it needed it or not. Slots left empty because a knife had gone missing years earlier. The weight of the whole block when you tried to move it during spring cleaning. Your mother dusting around it like it was furniture, not a kitchen tool. Most knife blocks outlived the payment plan that bought them by decades, sitting on counters long after anyone remembered what they'd cost. The real reason it eventually disappeared from most kitchens is that the block, like the knives themselves, quietly became too heavy, physically and financially, for the smaller kitchens that came after. The very last item on this list wasn't sold to your mother at all. It was sold by her, to every woman on her street, one Tupperware party at a time. Number 1. Tupperware. Lightweight, colorful, burp-sealed plastic containers, sold almost entirely through in home parties hosted by housewives themselves, starting in the early 1950s and reaching total market saturation by the 1970s. What most people don't know is that Tupperware wasn't really a product line. It was one of the first legitimate at-home businesses available to American women, built entirely around a party sales model invented by Brownie Wise, a woman who turned kitchen containers into a national sales force run almost exclusively by other women. The sound of a lid sealing shut tight. Bowls nested inside bowls, filling an entire cupboard shelf. A living room rearranged with folding chairs for the evening. Your mother hosting her own party, taking orders in a little paper booklet, earning a free serving bowl for every 5 sales. Tupperware's home party model declined sharply once women returned to the workforce in large numbers and simply had no evenings left to host or attend parties. The real reason it faded isn't the product. Tupperware still exists today. It's that the entire social world built around it, women gathering in each other's living rooms on a Tuesday night, quietly disappeared instead. These products didn't stop working. They were replaced by a life that no longer had room for them, for the parties, the payment plans, and the hours it took to earn a family's trust one dish at a time. Which one of these was in your mother's kitchen? Not just the object, what does remembering it actually bring back? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe, because there is a lot more of this country left to remember.